Hi everybody, I hope you're excited for your eggs. I just talked to Lewis River Hatchery and they're going to be ready for us a little bit early again this year, January 4th or 5th, and I'll probably go pick them up the Sunday or Saturday before we get back from winter break. I have some Right in the Rain data sheets printed for you guys in case you want to predict the hatch date with your students or kind of walk them through that, but you're a little bit unsure about what that looks like. I wanted to go through it with you and make sure you know how to do that. It's really easy once you know how to do it. So here we are in the Predict the Hatch Date Google folder, and the first thing we have is the lesson plan. So we can click on that, and there's a lot of information, background information here that you're welcome to look through. But the basic idea behind this activity is that we can record the temperature of the water and predict when our eggs are going to hatch and also when the alvin are going to start swimming. So because salmon are cold-blooded, different development stages are determined by temperature. And so they need a certain amount of thermal energy to reach different developmental stages. And that thermal energy comes from heat in the water, and it can be measured as temperature units, or what we call TUs. So I'll show you this first. So this is a little sign I gave to a lot of teachers a couple years ago that shows different salmon species and how many temperature units they need, how much heat they need from their water in order to reach different developmental stages. So for coho to become the eyed egg stage, they need 396 temperature units before that happens. And before they hatch, they need 720 to 900 temperature units. And to emerge, which means to start swimming, they need 1260 to 1440. And it's different for different species. So things like when they develop their heart, when they first start breathing, that's all determined by temperature. Not like humans, where it's you're in there for 9 months and it's kind of based on time. So salmon are different because they're cold-blooded. And you could theoretically not tell your students what species of eggs that you're receiving. You could see how long it takes them to start swimming or to hatch, and you could make a claim based on the evidence of your own hatch date or of your own emergence date, or both. I'm guessing you're probably going to tell your students that we have coho salmon, always coho. Let's take a look at some of these data sheets. This one has a space for you to record 2 temperatures per day. This is how it's set up at the hatchery. So every day it's somebody's job to come in and record the morning temperature, that afternoon temperature, they do an average temperature, and then they figure out the temperature units for that day. And so we'll walk through what that looks like. This, a little farther down, is a data sheet that Mike Clapp from CAM Academy uses with his students, and this is great too. So it's pretty similar to the previous one, but it's kind of neat to see their notes and exactly when they made certain observations. And this is the data sheet that I printed out for you guys. So we've got a space for the date, 1 water temperature instead of 2, and the temperature units added for 1 day, along with the accumulated or the total temperature units. And you can also record, if you removed any eggs or if you found any dead salmon. So you can have a salmon count from your aerial photo, and then also space for some different observations. We were just looking at the lesson plan, and now I'd like to show you guys this ATU and survival rate charts. It will show you a few different tabs down here at the bottom. So right now I'm in this year's data, and so far I know that our salmon were spawned on November 24th, and that the water temperature has been right around 49 degrees at Lewis River Hatchery. And our temperature units on 11/24 when they're spawned are 0. So they haven't experienced any heat. They have not reached any developmental milestones. When I called on December 15th, water temperature is still at 49, and now we've accumulated 386 temperature units. At the bottom of this Google chart, there's also information and observations from last year and the year before that and the year before that. You could use this to help students make their predictions. We can look at last year's data and we can see, okay, so the eggs that we raised last year, those were spawned pretty much the same day, right? 11/24 or 11/25. Water temperature was a little bit warmer last year in the Lewis River. Once they get to Columbia Springs, I can control the temperature, and I made it a little bit lower to make sure that the eggs wouldn't hatch before they got to your schools. I can look and see, okay, when were the egg pickups? Looks like I went to go pick up the eggs on January 3rd, and then we saw some hatching foam, so we had some fish hatching January 8th, and then we've got 44 alvin in one of the stockings, so those were hatching definitely by 753 temperature units. Okay, so then we can also look and see, okay, we still had a few eggs at 887, so you can kind of go through and compare from years past and try and get an idea of what's going to happen this year. Also at the bottom here is a chart that compares the survival rate in different rearing environments. So wild versus hatchery versus in our tank. And so we can start with our beginning number, what there is in the red, how many deaths have been recorded in different studies, and we can calculate the survival rate, and we can also speculate on what would be the cause of death for eggs or alvin in the wild versus what would be the cause of death, a lot lower here in the hatchery, and then we can record and calculate that for our tank as well, and we can compare what the different hazards might be in those different environments. I'm going to go ahead and start filling out my Write in the Rain data sheet. Okay, so now I'm going to start to think, okay, well, I'm doing my prediction of when are these going to be hatching. That's important to me because I want to know, are these eggs going to be hatching before they get into your tank? So I'm going to show you guys how many thermal units did the eggs accumulate today. So I'm going to take our water temperature, 49, and whatever the water temperature is, you just subtract 32. And that's going to give you the temperature units. So 49 minus 32, the salmon are getting 17, they're adding 17 temperature units today. So I'm going to add that to yesterday's total, 386 plus 17. Since I'm assuming that the water temperature is going to stay at 49 when they're at Lewis, I know that we're going to be adding 17 each day. So plus 17, plus 17, plus 17. So I'm literally just going to count the days. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Okay, so I'm curious, what are the temperature units going to be in 19 days? I'm adding 17 temperature units a day. 17 times 19. So 17 temperature units a day times 19 days. I'm looking at adding 323 temperature units in between now and January 4th. So I'm just going to take my 403. I'm just going to do a quick estimate here. Okay, so I'm guessing that by January 4th, we're going to be at 726 temperature units. And so I'm looking at coho salmon, and in Fahrenheit, temperature units, they need 720 to 900 temperature units before they hatch. And how many are they going to have? 726. So it's possible that when you open up your stocking, you might find some little hatchlings in there. That's happened before. So make sure that you're ready. So what I just showed you was me figuring out and estimating when the eggs are going to hatch, and to see if that was going to happen before I get the eggs to you. And now what I want to show you, since it looks like we're probably going to miss the opportunity to do that with students, to predict the hatch date with students, is to look at something to help us predict the emergence date and when the fish will start swimming. And we're looking here at data from last year. So again, remember that coho salmon will emerge or start swimming in the range of 1,260 to 1,440 temperature units, and that's if we're measuring in Fahrenheit. Okay, so kind of the upper range when we expect that all of the coho will be swimming around in the water column will be at 1,440 temperature units. Okay, so for this example, this is using last year's data. I'm going to take that 1,440, that upper range when all the salmon should be swimming, and let's take an example from the end of January last year. We were at 997 thermal units, and so if I subtract that, I know that I've got 443 temperature units left to go until all of my fish are swimming around. And then what I want to know with students is how many days away is that? So I can take that 443, basically the thermal units I still need before they're all swimming, and then I divided it by 15 because that was the average temperature units my salmon were getting each day. So if you remember from the Lewis River example, when I was trying to figure out when the eggs will hatch, I was saying plus 17, plus 17, plus 17. And that was because the water temperature at Lewis was 50 degrees. And at Columbia Springs last year, I was keeping my tank at 47. So my tank was always at 47, so I was always adding 15. So that's why I said, okay, each day I'm going to be adding 15 temperature units. So 443 divided by 15, that should give me the number of days until they're all swimming. And let's take a look. So just kind of out of curiosity, I was predicting that it was 29 and a half days away from January 25th that all of my fish would be swimming around. So I'm actually going to come back here and look at last year's data. Was that true? When were my fish swimming? Most of them had hatched at 877, and even before it was more like 850. So none swimming February 4th, none still swimming, none swimming yet. And then I got my first swimmers February 10th, and I don't have the data for when all of them were swimming, but I did get some starting to swim a little bit before that range of 1260. Okay, so happy predicting, everybody.